And here it is, finally on the table. Network server 700/150. Gonna look at the outside for a brief little bit, and then I'm gonna go ahead and just start pulling it apart. So have a key lock up here that is currently unlocked, locked, and then there's a wrench position, which I'm assuming is some sort of maybe diagnostic mode, or perhaps that's what it has to be switched to in order to install an operating system. Have an LCD display here, which looks like it may have come loose. Certainly part of it has come loose. System status will be displayed here while the system is running. I'm gonna guess, because of the way that this grill work is, that there's probably a speaker back here. So this is where the nice. I am sure that even though this runs AIX, that when you turn this on, it will produce, the Apple chime, and I'm pretty sure it will come right from there. Have a sliding door here, and behind the sliding door we have a floppy drive that looks to have a disk in it. A on-off switch. I'm not sure what these other two buttons are for. Through a lot of this, my ignorance of Macs is going to shine right on through, and here's a moment. I am sure that these are normal buttons on Apples, but I don't have the foggiest idea what they are. CD-ROM, and then a number of drive bays, and these drive bays should just slide right on out. And okay, so this is a Apple CD 600i. It connects into a little backplane thing here, and of course the backplane is some weird thing with really fragile looking pins. Oh, holy smokes, that. Okay, normally a backplane like this would have like a SCA kind of connector on it, but of course, because it's Apple, it's got to be its own thing. Let's see if there's any drives hiding in here. Yes. Okay, so here we have a Seagate drive, Hawk ST15230N. A lot of times these Seagate drives will say on them what the capacity is. This one does not. I notice, interestingly, that this is connected to the SCSI bus. Oh, it is not. Okay. So it is not connected. There's a lot that's not connected about it. Okay, that's interesting. All right. That will be. So typically, I would expect the SCSI ID to be set by the position of where it is connected in the backplane, and that this is probably, I am not sure. This is definitely not a drive that came from Apple. Okay. More investigation will be needed there. So typically, the position in the backplane determines the SCSI ID. Some kind of a connector from the backplane will go into the SCSI drive's SCSI ID selectors to set the SCSI ID. So this has a completely different sort of drive. This one is a Western Digital. At least says it's 4.3 gigabytes. Also not really connected up. These are regular narrow SCSI, as was the last one. Okay. And there's nothing in there, or there, or there, or there. Okay. All right. So that's it for that side. I'm gonna assume that this is air intake and a spider brooding area. Get off of me. For the power supply, I'm gonna try my best to rotate this. Now this is on wheels, and I'm very, very nervous about it. If I turn my back on it, I'm very nervous about it just rolling off this table and falling down and going boom. Okay, more venting, presumably for air to go out. Nothing else on the sides except scuff marks. You can see one of the wheels down here. I am not going to tip it up so that you can see the undercarriage. Maybe after it's fully disassembled. Okay, so on the back, so we have an asset tag of sorts that just says property of Apple Computer Incorporated, leased equipment, leased $496. Okay. Audio out, microphone in, ADB, Apple serial, VGA, the Apple Mini AUI kind of port, SCSI, another key lock, which hopefully the key that's on the front also unlocks this. I would expect that it would. Warning, unlocking this panel causes power shutdown, so presumably this has to be unlocked in order for this to be removed. Have 6 slots and missing a slot cover. Very nicely, there are thumb screws on the back. So I'm going to assume that this is the motherboard side and that this is, well, I'm guessing that the power supply is down here. So this would be behind the backplane. So this might be to access the actual circuit board that makes up the backplane. And then this side looks just like the other. Air out and more scuffing. Okay, well, I don't see any reason to not go ahead and just open this up. So this looks like, first let's check this. Okay, so that key does work on both. And it looks like, oh, that is so dirty. It looks like these fans just come, oh, that's nice. Okay. So the fans just come out, presumably, so there's the contacts for the fans here, and that must connect just on this part of the metal must connect just inside here, so the fans can be removed while the system is active to clean them out or replace or whatever. That's a nice feature. I'm assuming this one comes out the same way. Oh, it's so dirty. Yuck. Yeah, that looks the same. Oh, that is, I see dust in there. I see a lot of dust in there. All right, let's go ahead and just start in on these thumb screws. Now, I would guess that with nice, big, chunky handles like this, I ought to be able to just pull this out. There we go. Okay, I'm going to rotate this back. I don't want to see it before you get to see it. That wouldn't be fair. The big reveal. Is it got any more than that? A little bit. Okay. All right, well, there is the system board in all of its glory. Wow. So on the part on the actual main board that is vertical, there's not a speck of dust on it. Like, it looks brand new out of the factory. This CPU board, on the other hand, you could almost plant potatoes in this. Ooh. So it's got a battery. Huh. Okay, so this is a lithium battery. So that explains why it has not leaked. Yeah, this board looks gorgeous. Main system memory. Cache. That is a giant cache module. ROM. This is going to be the CPU module. The CPU module does not appear to be locked into place. It looks like there's some particles of foam kind of wedged in here between the actual circuit board and this little piece of metal here. All right, let's see if I can. Oh, that came out more easily than I was Okay. So here's the CPU board. But first I want to draw your attention to, here's the bit that's clean. I expect I'm going to have to zoom in on this. And here's the rest of it. I'm gonna come back to that. Network server processor card, 150 megahertz. So this connector, I believe, is very similar. So physically, these are similar to, I want to say the PowerMac 9500, but there's some subtle differences between them. Like there's some chip that's on one of them is on the system board, and on the other it's on the processor board. I don't remember which is which, but it's my understanding that unfortunately it means that the processor boards are not cross-compatible, which is a real shame because for the 9500 there were quite a few faster boards, including some dual processor boards, and that would make this a really, really interesting machine to have, like dual 200 megahertz 604Es or something on it, but we'll have to suffer with this. So here you can see I'm gonna do the finger drag test, so you can see it's a little bit clean up here, and it leaves a nice a nice trail through the dust. Now I can see that this is littered with these little surface mount capacitors. But as clean as this board is, if there were any leakage from those capacitors, I would expect that I would be able to see it, that it would be obvious that they were leaking. So I feel pretty confident that this system board might just be okay. So the RAM module that's in it says 016M, so I'm assuming that each of these is 16 megabytes. So it's got 64 megs installed. And it connects into everything else through the power. There's a big chunky power connector here. Why do I keep saying that? And an edge connector here, which I see SCSI connectors here, but no evidence of any other cables. So I'm going to assume that the connection to the SCSI backplane is going to be through this edge connector. So I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to try to rearrange this to see if we can take a little peek inside. With the board tray fully pulled out, there's these two little plastic clips, one here and one here, and I'm going to guess that with those out, it should, just come free. Okay, excellent. So here's another view of that massive power connector. And something I just noticed is there is a little jolly red candy-like button. It does make a delightful click sound in there. And I do not see a label anywhere around that to indicate what it may be. So the other thing that I notice is on the motherboard here it says 60NS only, so that is going to imply to me that these are probably 60 nanosecond EDO DRAM modules, which is kind of a hassle because those are not very common kinds of modules. They are harder to come by, especially in larger sizes, and if memory serves, can be a bit more expensive. If I'm going to play around with this toy, of course I'm going to want to max it out. Have we met? And then inside, let's see. Okay, yeah, we can get a pretty good view inside. I may be able to add a little bit more light. All right, so some extra light. And you can see here's the, this is difficult. Here's the power connector on the inside. Here is the connector that the motherboard slots into, and you can see that this circuit board goes over. Okay, so what I can see that you cannot see is right up here, where my finger is, there is a ribbon cable that goes from this little circuit board to parts unknown. Presumably this is going to be the connector to the backplane, and then there's also a small connector just up here. So this small connector up here, which now my arm's in the way of the light, is, I would guess, going to go to that front LED display. And there's this foam pad here that was nice and squared, but where I just rested my arm on it, it is now smushed, never to come back. That's not good. And okay, and then in addition, there is, you can see right here, remember when I was first looking at the processor board and I said, oh hey, between the circuit board here and this metal bar, there's some bits of foam. Well, there's a neat gouge here in this track gouge here in this foam that I'm assuming is caused by, that is probably right exactly where the processor card is. So I bet, oh yeah, that foam is, you can see where I just, let's see if I can get light on that in a good way. You can see where I just put my finger. Okay, so that foam is done. That will have to come out, possibly be replaced. I would guess that it does dual purposes, sound dampening, and then perhaps also to make, sort of to shape airflow, like kind of constrain the space so the air is going to flow in a certain way around it. Not sure. But that will have to come out, which means that this case will have to be completely disassembled. All right, let's see what's inside here. And I'm guessing, yeah, okay. So this cable is the cable from this other little circuit board up here that connects to, this will be the SCSI backplane, and there are, so there's two cables that connect. There's one way up here, and there's this one here, and they both connect to this board here. And the way that this is labeled is bus 0 ID0, bus 0 ID1, bus 0 ID2, bus 0 ID3, and then bus 1 ID4, bus 1 ID5. So, and then way down at the bottom where you cannot see, bus 1 ID6. So there's multiple SCSI buses. I did not look closely enough at the board here. Okay, so there are two separate Symbios logic 53C825A SCSI controllers. And the FW, which I'm assuming is fast wide SCSI control 1 and fast wide SCSI control 0. So there are two SCSI controllers on board, two separate SCSI buses for improved bandwidth, and they are fast wide. Those drives that are, the two drives that are in there and the CD-ROM drive are both narrow drives, so those will be slower. Narrow SCSI is parallel bus 8 bits at a time. Wide SCSI is parallel bus 16 bits at a time. So it's potentially twice the bandwidth. So this little mark right here, and I'm assuming that matches with this cable. There's a little bit of text here that says bus 1 ID1. And this says J16, but I don't see an obvious marking for what SCSI ID that would be intended to be. And then there is a massive power connector, and this is convenient because one of the things that I will want to do before turning this on, this continues to be surprisingly clean inside, so I'm feeling like it might just fire up. The only thing I'm particularly concerned about is the power supply. And so with this really nice, huge power connector, I can hopefully turn it on. Hopefully it doesn't need a system board in order to just turn on the power supply. Hopefully I can turn it on and check voltages here to make sure that the power supply is in decent shape. Because I do not immediately see, I see lots of screws to remove the top and the sides, but I don't immediately see a way to get inside at the power supply. That would be the one thing that I would worry about at this point in the investigation. One thing that is absolutely for certain is with the sides and the top, which you can't see, removed, this is a lot lighter and a lot easier to move around. So I've removed all this, both sides and the top. This was the side where that ruined foam pad was, and there was a metal cover over here that covers. Here's the IC connector, and so down in here is where the power supply is, and you can see these fans are pretty filthy, and it is dirty in there, but not horrifying. This is a giant bundle of power cables. I'm pretty impressed. And down inside here, which you can't quite see it with the camera, I'm gonna see if I can adjust the angle. So that is the other end of the power connector that connected to the backplane. So the actual meat of the power supply is down underneath here. I still haven't quite sorted out how to get there. Unlike a lot of my projects, I don't really want to just start making guesses and ripping things apart. A lot of the disassembly of this is fairly straightforward. But I think for the next step, I'm going to have to actually look up a service manual. Through the magic of the service manual, I was able to discover that there are two buttons, one here and one here, that supposedly, if you just push these buttons, this front, oh good grief, assembly comes out. Why are you fighting me? Okay. What is the deal? So I guess you do get to see the underside after all. Don't understand why this is being difficult. Oh, I know why. What a hassle. The thing that the manual does not say that I was able to observe is that I bet the key has to be unlocked, but why will the key not? Aha, okay. So the key has to be unlocked. Oh, that is so much easier to move. So, you can see this little tab. This was the problem, which I hope I didn't bend that, which I may have bent that a little bit, and that's why this is being extra difficult now. So without it being unlocked, you can't take the grill out, because the grill allows direct access to the massive power supply. And according to the manual, the reason that there are two bays down here is you can put two of these power supplies in so that they will be hop swappable. So you have two power supplies in. If one fails, you remove it, you put in a new one, and you just keep on trucking. This particular system only has a single power supply. Now the question is, oh boy. Looking at this power supply, I do not see any way to open it up. The only screws I see are these 4 screws that are holding in the fans. There are metal tabs that hold it together here and sundry rivets, but other than that, it is all just like formed steel. And I feel like any attempt to disassemble it would essentially demolish it. So that means the only servicing I'm going to attempt on this is I'm going to take it out to my garage and I'm going to give it a good working over with my air compressor. I'm going to take this out there also and give it a similar workout with the air compressor. I think I am going to try to take this front cover off. The service manual will explain how to do that, I'm sure, because it is really filthy and I want to actually wash it with soap and water. And then I don't know what else to do with this before giving it some electricity. So I managed to get everything pretty well cleaned out in here. Fortunately, my air compressor broke. Perfect timing, right? I managed to get everything cleaned out using canned air and a little vacuum thing that I have and a shop vac. I think it's as good as I'm going to get it until I can manage to get my air compressor repaired. I have basically the only things that I have reassembled is I reinstalled the power supply under here, and the front is just kind of loosely installed just so that it can the front control panel can click on. And I'm wondering if maybe that would have been a better camera angle. This should be a little bit better angle because we can see the display, which is hooked up. This is just kind of lightly resting because all of the brackets that it actually attaches to have been removed. And I don't want to put them back on yet because there may be additional disassembly later. I'm going to go around and actually plug in the power cord. I have the multimeter hooked up to the connector, the power connector that goes to the SCSI backplane around back. So I'm going to hook this up while the camera is camera-ing. It is possible that this will be anticlimactic. I had disassembled the key connector here, and I'm not 100% sure I got it back together right. It's very stubborn now, and so I'm not sure if it's actually in the correct on position. I wasn't kidding when I said this was just sitting on here. Okay. Nobody touched nothing. All right, I did plug in the power connector with no fireworks, so that's maybe something. Let's see if pressing the power button does anything. Nothing. Okay, let's see. Maybe this is not actually right. So my worry is that in order to actually turn on, it has to have the motherboard installed. Well, boo. Okay. That is worrisome. All right. I'm super full of anxiety about this. I did not want to have to skip the check the power supply stage, but I'm really not sure what else to do because it doesn't want to seem to do anything without the main board installed. So I have installed it, and hopefully it'll be okay. Oh, that is okay. So I'm assuming that's I'm plugged into a 5-volt rail, and I'm gonna rotate this. All right, I'm gonna guess that power is probably okay. I think it's maybe more interesting to see the little display on the front. All right, well it has powered on. My fitness tracker says my heart rate isn't that high. I don't know if I believe it. ROM version 1.1.22, 64 megabytes of RAM, which is half of what I was anticipating for this machine. 150 megahertz 604, 50 megahertz bus, 1 megabyte L2 cache. So this all matches the expectations except for this bit about 64 megabytes of RAM. Now, none of the hard drives have spun up because the backplane for them is completely not powered. It's disconnected, so they won't, like, the CD-ROM won't even eject because it has no power. I think this seems safe enough. What happens if okay, because it wasn't booted into an operating system, it'll just turn off. There was no chime. I'm pretty sure I hooked the speaker back up correctly, but there was no chime. I find that a little bit disappointing. I don't actually know if these chime, but anyway. Okay, I'm going to power the backplane, and I think I might hook up a display to this, and we'll see if this boots up. Okay, the backplane is connected to power. Fortunately, the connector is keyed, so there's only one way to connect it. I've hooked up a VGA monitor. Let's go for broke. Nothing on the display. Oh. All right. Well, that's a thing. I suspect. I don't know what that was. That sure cracked me up. I don't think any of these SCSI drives. Well, so this top one isn't. Its power supply wasn't connected. But these other ones. This other one should be. All right. What's going to happen if I connect this to power? Let's turn this off. So I suspect the problem that we were having there is because I removed the PRAM battery. It doesn't know what to boot from. I suspect is the issue there, but I'm curious why I don't hear. All right, so the backplane has power. Okay. All right, so the drive that I just connected to its power, that sound, oh boy, that is funny. Okay, so it is going to complain about the processor fan being failed because it's over here, which I think is probably okay. I'm not super concerned about that. These other drives do not seem to be power. Oh, that's right. This only has the 2 drives, and this drive does not seem to power up, which is interesting. I wonder why this Wonder why this drive does not spin up or do anything. Okay, let's go ahead and hook the processor fan back up so that it doesn't complain. Which one of these? I'm gonna pick the fan that looks the least icky. I'm gonna pick this one. All right, I'm gonna hook this up. I'm going to go find an ADB keyboard to hook up so that I can try to communicate with this, and it might actually boot up and do something. I installed the CPU fan, and now it's really upset that the drive fan failed. I don't know how readable. Drive fan failed! Exclamation point. All right, let's see. Whoops. It's weird. The dimples on this keyboard are not on the keys that I anticipate them being on. Okay. Can't open the device. I got one of the machines to power on, light up two displays, technically. Spin up a drive. It's angry. I don't know what to do from this point. I have not researched that far. I think this will probably be the end of the video. There's still another machine which is partially disassembled. I had to take it apart a little bit because I didn't remember exactly how to get some of the things back together on this. I think what I'm going to do is reassemble the front, get this fully put back together, and figure out how the heck to get AIX going. And that will be the next video. Either that will be the next video or dealing with issues. I'm pointing over there because I can see the other giant Apple network server sitting over there, kind of mocking me. It will be some combination of those things. If you have enjoyed this content, I would really appreciate a like. If you have anything to tell me that I did wrong, and I am sure there are a great many things, do not hesitate to tell me about it in the comments, because then I can do it correctly on the other one. This doesn't seem to have exploded though, so I didn't go too terribly wrong. If you would like to see the other videos about this, I feel like there's going to be at least 2, maybe even 3. This might spill out of... I should be able to get 3 videos out in October, since this is going to come out in the first week. This may spill over into November. This is too interesting of a piece to set aside until the job is fully done. All of that is to say, if you want to see any more of that, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, try to remember the good stuff.